Hello everyone, my name is Chrissy and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be doing a reviewing romance for Forever by Judy Blume. Now, a little bit of context into this novel. This was written back in the 1970s, and Judy Blume wrote it as a response to her daughter asking her, why is it that whenever two teenagers have sex, something really bad has to happen to them, like an unwanted pregnancy, or even including death. Judy Blume thought this was a great point to make, and she decided to write a book where two teenagers have sex and nothing horrendous happens to them. At the time that this was published, it got a lot of controversy. There's two teenagers who have sex. Now I have read some descriptions that it's graphic sex. It's not the most graphic in modern day times, but I can only imagine during the 70s this was scandalous. I actually read this based on a friend of mine saying that this was a horrible relationship, and to see whether or not this could test my 5 categories in reviewing romance. So if you're new here, I base my romances off of 5 categories: chemistry, kindness, respect, compatibility, communication, and trust. I give each category from 0 to a heart, and then total that up to equal out to 0 to 5 hearts. Around average is about 2.5 hearts. A pretty good relationship is anything above that. A not great relationship would be anything below. Now, with that being said, I do realize that given this time period, there's going to be things that I have problems with in this text. Things that I think should be common sense in a relationship may not have been common sense during that time period. So while I did keep that in mind, it didn't stop me from actually cringing when I got to certain parts. Now, as a basic summary for this book, it follows 2 teenagers, Catherine and Michael, and their relationship throughout their senior year and a little bit past. The book is told through Catherine's point of view, and let's just jump into it. Now, for the first category in my reviewing romance, chemistry, I gave half a heart. The reason why I gave half a heart is because these two, especially when they first meet, don't actually seem to like each other all that much. They show a modicum of interest, but there's not really anything there that would tell me they truly even just like one another. The only times we really get to see them want one another is when they're about to have sex, and that's kind of weird, especially if you're looking at a love relationship. Now, as said, I know that this book isn't supposed to be a tale of 2 soulmates or 2 people who are destined to be together. And even when you're not meant to be with a person or that you're not a soulmate to another, you should still have a type of attraction to that person other than, I'm single, you're single, And that's where it really gets kind of just, I don't understand why these two got together the way that they did, or why this relationship lasted as long as it did. Now, the second category, respect and kindness, I just gave a no. It's a no. No. I did have a little bit of trouble figuring out whether I was going to give this 0 to a half a heart, because the half a heart I was considering, because they don't hit each other, they don't curse each other out, but I decided that if I ever came across an abusive relationship in a book, it's getting negative hearts. So with that being said, I gave 0 for kindness and respect. Catherine and Michael sometimes have a very hard time thinking about one another at all. In fact, it takes a big thing happening for either of them to show the modicum of empathy for each other. And granted, keep in mind I have more examples of Michael behaving in a horrendous way than I do Catherine, and primarily because the ones with Michael stand out more to me because they have to deal with sex than Catherine's, which is just kind of, she just doesn't really think about Michael's feelings, especially in regards to his friends or sometimes his hobbies. Like, it's there, and sometimes you can see a spark of, yes, I know he likes these things, that's important to him, but at the same time, it's not really abundantly clear. So I have an example of a cringy moment between Michael and Catherine in which Catherine lays out the ground rules that she doesn't want to be intimate at this point in time. I took a sweater and bra out of my dresser drawer while Michael bounced up and down on my bed. Very nice, he said, firm but not too hard. I'm glad you approve. Did you know that soft mattresses are no good for making love? Michael: really, I mean it. That's very interesting. Now would you please leave so I can change? Are you ashamed of your body, Catherine? No, of course not. Then what's the difference if I stay? If someone tells you, you need to go so I can change my clothes, that's not a moment that you argue with someone, especially when you're in a new relationship. These two haven't been dating very long, and there's already been the groundwork that, listen, I don't want to be intimate with you at this point in time. Take a no, man. Take a no. This happens again and again. And what drove me the most crazy about this is that Judy Blume made a statement that she just didn't want a story where the girls didn't want sex. She wanted the girls to have kind of a sexual liberation type of thing where they could enjoy their bodies and enjoy the acts of doing intimate things with other people. And she didn't want teenage boys to always be represented as these sex-driven little monsters. But then Michael goes around, and for the most part, he's kind of just sex-driven towards Catherine when they're alone together. Anytime that they have a modicum of alone time, he's like, hey, let's get it on. So to me, it just did not warm my heart to Michael at all. And granted, I do realize that I may just be overly sensitive to this, but at the same time, it just didn't. The vibe of the whole book didn't seem joking enough for me to get it as a quippy, witty retort towards his girlfriend. It just seemed like he was kind of being a little douchey. Another example I have of Michael, and I realize I'm picking on Michael, but another example I have is Catherine's trying to tell Michael, I'm just not mentally prepared to have sex with you. Like, the body is willing, but the mind is saying, no ma'am. And that's a perfectly valid reason for not having sex with someone. Sometimes you're just not ready on a mental level to have sex with a person, and that's okay. You're allowed to have that. But this is the conversation that ends up going. How does a person get mentally ready? He asked. A person has to think. A person has to be sure. But your body says you want to. I have to control my body with my mind. Oh shit, Michael said. It's not easy for me either. I know. He put his arm around me. Look, we can satisfy each other without the whole thing. For a moment, it seemed like Michael was really trying to look at Catherine's point of view. And then that we can satisfy each other without doing the whole thing. This speaks of not really empathy for me. If your partner's saying to you, hey, I just not wanting or not ready or I'm having second thoughts on being intimate, then they have second thoughts about being intimate. You don't try and goad them into doing sexual acts when they're saying no. Or they're saying, I'm not ready. Or they're saying, I'm scared. So to me, that just doesn't belie kindness and respect to your partner. And with Catherine, I really wish I had done more screenshots of some of the stuff she would do. But for hers, it was more of I just didn't think she really cared about Michael. Like, she would tell people, I can't wait to be alone with him. But then when he would either talk about his problems or what have you, his wants, his dreams, his ambitions, it just didn't seem like she was invested at all. At one point, Michael has a friend who attempts to commit suicide. The way that Catherine reacts to this is a little bit kind of a whatever. She talks briefly about it and how Michael and Erica feel bad about what happened, but she doesn't really have an emotional moment for that. She doesn't really... I got no scene that told me Catherine actually gave a damn. Not really in ways that were satisfying to me, at least. As I said, once again, I realize that I'm looking at this with a very modern lens. I also have a very narrow view of, what's right and wrong in those kind of regards. So for me, Catherine not really doing anything, not really reaching out, not showcasing her emotions to this tragic thing that happened, it just... Oddly enough, I have more examples of just Catherine not being nice to other people or thinking mean thoughts about others. For example, these are the opening lines to the whole book. Sybil Davison has a genius IQ and has been laid by at least 6 different guys. She told me herself the last time she was visiting her cousin Erica, who is my good friend. Erica says this is because of Sybil's fat problem and her need to feel loved. Oh, Catherine, why are you judging, huh? And one could say, well, it's not Catherine saying these things. It was Erica telling her that. Catherine talks about Sybil's weight a few more times during this book. In fact, while Sybil is in a play with Mike's best friend, what's-his-face, she talks about how it seems Sybil has gotten fatter. What the hell? Sorry, I could rant about this for a while, and I'm not going to. It's fine. It's fine. It's just two characters in a book. Whatever. Let's move on. For compatibility, I put half a heart, and that's only because I felt bad for not wanting to put a heart in compatibility. These two don't really have a lot to share. They hang out with similar friends, so I think that's my primary reason for giving them a half a heart is they do run in the same circles, so they have similar friends and that kind of thing. But otherwise, there's not really much. These two are pretty dull people. Catherine's only other hobby is tennis, and we don't really see her interested or playing tennis up until, I think, the last quarter of this book. And Michael is interested in being a ski instructor, and this is actually a big part of his wants and ambitions. But the one time he shares this with Catherine, I don't know if she's truly interested in skiing or if she's just going to kind of appease him. Communication, I put as a big no. The reason why I put this as a big no is because the examples I gave earlier in Respect and Kindness, that's kind of a lot of their conversation. Both of them seem to have trouble communicating either their emotions or thought process. They have a hard time understanding each other in that kind of terms. There's also the fact that sometimes they just don't tell each other things. When Michael is offered a job with his family that would take him out of the state, he doesn't tell Catherine this. He just doesn't. Until she finds out quite a few weeks later. So this causes some tension in the relationship, and as I said, they're just not very good at authentic and real communication with one another. The things that you absolutely need for a relationship. The last category is trust, which I gave a big ol' ha! One could make the argument that they do trust each other, but I would make the argument that is blind trust. The reason why they trust each other is because they're in a relationship and they feel like they need to. Not because that they just intrinsically think the best of that other person. To me, it just didn't feel like there was sufficient evidence within this book to say that, hey, because I admire you, because I like you, and because I love you, I trust in your judgment, I trust in the things that you're going to do, I trust that you will treat me with dignity and respect. It's just not there. Instead, it's, you're my boyfriend, so I'm going to tell people I trust you. I know you wouldn't do these things, and then they turn around and do the thing. And the main examples I have are each time Michael says that he wants to talk to Catherine, Catherine is thinking, that's what he said last time. So she knows that he's probably not just wanting to talk and not trusting that he just wants to have a conversation. And then he proves her right anyway. So that leads to me giving this book a whole heart out of 5. I do wonder if Judy Blume wrote this as a way to tell her daughter, your first love isn't going to be your whole heart, isn't going to be your soulmate, so don't count on it, sweetheart. And I do wonder if she kind of deliberately wrote a not great relationship just to kind of showcase to her young child. But I don't really know. To me, this is a realistic relationship. I do think, people will act this way. I have met people who have had relationships that are very much like this, where things were very physical, but as far as emotionally and mentally, they weren't in the same place. So I do commend Judy Blume on being able to portray that on page. Now, that being said, just to talk about the writing, there's a lot of ellipses going on, and I don't really know why. They're in, every other sentence. Then there's the fact that there's not really much happening. It's about this kind of boring relationship between these two people. And the big conflict doesn't come until the last half of the second part of this book. One thing that did make me laugh a lot and made me cringe so badly is that Michael ends up naming his genitalia Ralph. And Catherine uses the nickname to describe their sexual acts. She's like, I touched Ralph. And then Michael tells her, you made Ralph happy. Why? Why? There are so many romance novels that are able to talk about sex without actually naming the body part. It was so cringy, but it made me laugh. It did make me laugh very hard. So that was my reviewing Romance for Forever by Judy Blume. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you like seeing my face talk about books, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any opinions on any of the things I talked about, if you think that I'm wrong in any of my ratings, or you think I was unjust or unfair, comment down in the comments below. Or if you think I was right, or you think I was justified for feeling the way that I do, comment down below. As always, may you get lost in a book.